So we've gotten through, I think, the hard part. We've introduced all the signals. We've gone through all these rules. For the remainder of the day, we're actually going to apply the system so that hopefully over the next couple hours, you'll say, oh yeah, it kind of makes sense. I can do this. We are going to start off by doing an animation where we're going to consider the NASDAQ market in 1984 and 85. When we first introduced this system to Chris Gessel, who's the editor of IBD, he was really interested in how Market School would handle a particularly difficult market. So he actually is the one who chose this period of time. And you'll see as we're going through the example that over the first 6 months or so, it's a very choppy environment. It's not really a nice trending market. It's just very difficult. And you'll see that even our system gets whipped in and out a bit. Later in the period, it really gains some steam, and you'll see how our system got you in relatively early and kept you in for the bulk of the move. For those of you that are repeating Market School, some of the changes that we've implemented with regard to the power trend and so forth in this example allowed the buy switch to stay on for about an additional 5 months. So we were able to maintain some market exposure, or at least have the ability to act on buy signals even when the market got into a tough environment. So it's going to benefit over this time period. We are going to go day by day and apply all of these signals and all of the rules that we've taught you over about a 1-year period. So
here we're starting clearly out of the market, end of May of 1984. We have a pink day, rally day. So if we're out of the market, the buy switch is off, and we have a rally day, what are we going to be looking for? A follow-through day. Okay, so on your cheat sheet, what is that? A B what? B1. B1, okay. So we're right here, and what does this look like to you? Follow-through day, so a B1. So that turns on our buy switch, puts us to a +1 with an exposure of 30. So we're looking around, and as Charles said, maybe he's going to buy big positions, buy a 20-25% position, hold on to a little cash. Maybe you want to buy 4 or 5 smaller positions. How you get there is up to you, but you can go up to 30% invested if you can find the merchandise.
all right, we're going to go forward about 2 weeks, and now we get a sell signal. What do you think that might be? Here was our follow-through day. We closed below the low of that follow-through day. Very good. So we drew a little line there. So now we're backing away. And so we're back to zero exposure. Now, a little bit later, we're going to talk about, well, let's say you're up on a stock. Does that mean you have to sell it? Not necessarily, but we're going to cover that a little bit later.
All right, so we go forward a little bit over a week. And what does this look like to you guys? B3? Okay, anything else? You can look. No. It's not a B2. It's probably hard to see because the volume isn't higher than the prior day. That's why, but it's probably a big enough percentage. It's certainly close enough. So it's a B3 and a B8. So you're going to have to start training your eyes to look at a prior high and low for the different signals. So that puts us back at a +2 because our buy switch was still on. We can act on those. We closed above there. Plus our low is above our 21-day, so we can go up to 55% invested.
We triggered your higher high a couple of days before, and now you're back below that. So it's an S14, and we're backing away again, so our exposure goes back down to 30%.
All right, so you can kind of tell that something's going on here because we've got some distribution piling up. Now keep in mind, back then, we only needed 4 days of distribution to be full. So it's a little odd to think of 4 days as 6 days in present day, but during this time frame, you've got 3 days of distribution. So what do you think that is? So it's the S3, and then we also broke below our 21 day, so it's an S5 that puts us back to 0 at this point.
The market's still really not doing much, but we get another distribution day here. So 4 days of distribution in this time frame is a full count. So what signal is that? Full count of distribution is an S4. Now what happens when you have zero market exposure, your count is 0 from the previous sell signal, and you have full distribution? the buy switch turns off. So now you're waiting for another follow-through day. The rally hasn't definitively failed yet as far as going below your rally day here, but you've had enough sell signals here and enough distribution to basically say your rally has failed. So we're going to turn off the buy switch and wait for another follow-through.
So now we go forward a bit because we were over here in early July. Now we're over here. The market keeps going lower and lower and lower. So we get a pink day, rally day. And we're looking for what? A follow-through. Okay. And so does that look like a follow-through day? Yeah. The volume is clearly higher than the prior day, big percentage. So the buy switch turns back on and we can go in 30%.
Keep in mind that the buy switch turned off around here. Bill has always said you don't have to wait for the rally to fail by undercutting your rally day to get out of the market. A lot of people think, oh, well, you know what, if my rally hasn't definitively failed with an S2, I'm going to stick with it, and hope. He said if you've got a lot of distribution early on here, you've got enough sell signals, get out of the market before. You don't have to wait for things to get really, really bad before you're acting. So you get your follow-through day here. The next day you get another couple buy signals. What do you think those might be? B3, right? You're back above the 21 day, and you have a huge day on higher volume than the previous day, so that's an additional follow-through. So now we're at a +3. That would indicate 75% exposure.
All right. Now what does this look like? Looks like the same thing is going on, but something else going on there. Above the 50, and it looks like an uptrend, but is there something else going on here? Higher, yeah. So we have all those things that you guys mentioned. So we have our B2, which is our additional follow-through day. Now keep in mind, I heard someone say an accumulation day a little bit earlier. Any of those, because it closes in the top quartile, if it happens within 25 days of our rally, we consider it a B2 instead of an accumulation day. If this would have happened over here, it would have been an accumulation day. So here's a B2 because we're still close enough to our rally. So that's one signal. Then the B6, which is our 50-day, because the 50-day is now in an uptrend where our low is above it. And then the B8 taking out that high there. So that puts us to 100% already. This is grayed out because we didn't need it. Needed 2 buy signals to get us to 100. We're too early on for it to be a power trend.
Okay, so the market keeps rallying up, and finally over here, we get another buy signal, and the power trend turns on. So what's one of the criteria for a power trend to turn on? You need to be living above your 21 day. Okay, so that would be a B5. It's a buy signal. Because the power trend goes on that day, we can expand our count to +7, which is going to give us a cushion, kind of counter any sell signals we get. We're expanding our count to 7. So we're at a +6 now. We're still 100%. Remember, we're not going to act on those additional signals. Doesn't mean go on margin. Although you could go on margin if you wanted to. The market's had enough evidence that it's strong and it's trending at this point. But for purposes of our system, we stayed at 100% max.
Now we go forward a little bit, and what does that look like? It's another B2 because we're still within 25 days. That puts us at a +7 or 100% in.
Okay, so on this day here, there's a couple things happening. You've got 2 distribution days, and you also have a stall day. So we have a total of 3 distribution days. 4 is a full count. So what would 3 days represent? An S3. So that's a sell signal. But we also are another 5 days above your 21 days. So it's going to be a B5. So these 2 signals actually cancel each other out, and we don't do anything with the count. The count remains at the +7. So nothing happened on that day.
What's going on here? I don't think it's enough for a bad break, but we have 2 distribution signals going on because back here, as we said, we were at a +4, and the way we count stalling, we weren't counting this stalling yet because we didn't have enough distribution, but now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of distribution. 2 of them happen to be stalling, so we're allowed to pick those up. So we get 2 S4s happening at the same time And so that puts us at a +5. So that buffer is gone, but we don't have to do any selling yet. If you saw this happen and you have a gap down in the market, you're going to look at your stocks and you can sell some if they're not acting right, but you're not forced to sell any. You can stay at 100% if everything's acting fine.
And this is one of those examples where you've got heavy distribution in the market, but the market isn't giving you other signs of weakness. So again, it's kind of characteristic of what we've had over the past several years, a lot of distribution, but the market isn't going down. So the power trend allowed you to kind of stay fully invested up to this point. Now, the next day you actually do get an additional distribution day. So now we've got 6 days of distribution, so that's an additional S4. That is the maximum amount of distribution we're going to count. So we've had a full count plus 2 additional ones. So we're done counting distribution at this point. If we get another follow-on distribution day at this point, we're not going to act on it. We've already had enough sell signals just based on distribution. And we have to reduce our exposure a bit, so we go from a 5 to 4. So we're backing away a little bit.
But as you mentioned earlier, if we get a cluster, we would still act on that.
It's possible if you get a cluster of distribution, you might act on that.
Okay, so now this is where we were talking earlier about a minor low. This becomes a minor low. This is a major low. We were out of the market. We had zero exposure. The buy switch was off. Up here, the buy switch is on, obviously, because we've got the power trend. But as Charles mentioned, we have a lot of distribution. We're looking for a follow-through day, essentially just to kind of reset that distribution. That's just how the rules work. So this becomes a minor low. So if it's breached, it's not as important as this one over here. But what does it look like? What signal do you see over here? Higher high and a B1, right? Because this is now our rally day. So it becomes a B1 resetting, and a B1 resets distribution. And we've got a B8 going over that high. And so it was a low volatility time frame back then, and so we didn't need to be up the full amount. So we're at a +6.
2 days later, you fall back below that last marked high. So we're going to reverse the signal that we bought on the higher high. So it's an S14 because we broke back below that. We're at a +5. We're still 100% invested. I mean, we actually haven't had to adjust our portfolio in a little while. But the count has been shifting, but we're still at that fully invested position.
You can barely tell that that's below. So it's below this B1. So this becomes an S1 because we closed below it. If we would have closed back over here, the S1 wouldn't have triggered. So that becomes a sell signal. And so that puts us at a +4 or 90%.
Okay, now we kind of definitively break below your 21-day moving average. And we've been above that 21-day for quite a while now without an S5. So what do you think that's going to be? An S5 and an overdue break of the 21 days. So right, S5 and an S6. That's going to bring us back down to a +2 from a +4.
Okay, so a lot's going on this day. So what do you think is happening? So the day before we were at a +2. So what's going on here? Yeah, so we've got the distribution -1 because 3 days of distribution back then. So you have quite a few things going on. So you've got your S3, which is your distribution -1, that's grayed out. Your S12 because you're breaking below that marked low there. But also this is a minor low here, so it's an S2, and we talked earlier when you break below that we get hit twice there, so that puts us at a +1. It really would put us at a 0, but we have the power trend on. Now we go, instead of the cluster putting us to a floor of +1, this is putting us to a floor of +1. So our floor is on, even though we had all these other sell signals triggering, because we had that power in the sense that this might turn into something really big, so we want to give it a little bit more room. And this follow-through day here wasn't the original type of follow-through day that Bill was studying 40 years ago. He was studying the ones down here. But if you just put it into a black box and you start looking for all this distribution, you're going to need follow-throughs even up here. So that's where we're at. We're at a +1. Our buy switch is still on, the power trend is on.
Okay, we continue to come down. We're now sitting on the 50-day moving average, but we're getting more distribution. So we now have a full count of distribution. That's an S4. And we're also trending below your 21-day moving average. Now, why are they both grayed out? Why are we not acting on those? The power trend. Power trend is not turned off yet, and we still have a floor of a +1. So we're not going to act on those until the power trend without a floor condition occurs. And remember, that occurs when you break your 50-day. So up until this point, our system is forcing you to keep some exposure in the market.
Okay, so now on this day, what happens? S9. So that's our S9 plus the additional distribution. So we didn't act on the S4, but the S9 we act on, as Charles mentioned, that removes the floor. The power trend is still on because the 21-day has not gone underneath that 50-day. So you can still act on a buy signal if it occurs, but we've had enough damage here that we're saying we're going to be out of this market, but we're going to stay ready to buy if this market just snaps right back. Do the rules make sense to you of how they're working at this point? So it's in line with how you should trade if you've been doing the system for a while.
Okay, so buy switch is still on, but we're not in the market. We're out of the market. And finally, over here, notice how your 21-day goes below your 50-day. So that's going to end the power trend. Okay? When the power trend ends, what happens? Buy switch doesn't necessarily have to turn off, but it doesn't keep it on. So in this case, you have full distribution. You've had full distribution. You're out of the market. That normally turns off your buy switch. So it is going to turn off your buy switch. And now we're waiting for another follow-through day.
Okay, so we go forward. We've got a pink rally day. And then what does it look like? Follow-through day. All right, the volume's higher. It's a big move up. So it's a B1. Turns our buy switch on. We can go 30% in.
And then you have a little gap up. What's that now? B3. There's your 21-day moving average. We're well above it. Lows above it. So that's a B3. So it's going to increase our exposure to +2.
All right, now what does this look like? We go forward a few days. So it's an S5, puts our exposure down to +1.
And now, remember where our follow-through day was. Our follow-through day was here. So what happens on this day? We close below it. Very good. S1. So we're now back out of the market. Again, the rally hasn't definitively failed yet, but we are going to back away because we broke below the two sell signals to neutralize the buy signals. Let me ask you, is the buy switch off now that we're back at 0? No, because we haven't had any distribution yet, or enough distribution to cause that to happen.
All right, so on this day, what does it look like? An additional follow-through, and what else? Which, look at your cheat sheet, what does it look like? B3, there you go. So B2 and a B3, so it's an additional follow-through day because it's within 25 days of our rally day, and it's a B3 because our low is above our 21-day, so we're at a +2. So now you're getting exposure again.
And we
for a little
go
while.
Forward another week or so, and what happens? S5, right? We break back below the 21-day, so we're at a 1. Now, look, is this a good market? Are you going to really, realistically, we're not going to make money in this market. It's just not realistic. I mean, you had a follow-through and you've just been languishing. So somewhere, if you've got a couple stocks, maybe you're trying to hold them, maybe they're up, maybe you're down on them. But this is not the environment where we're going to do extremely well.
So what does it look like is happening right here? Yeah, you got some distribution piling up, right? 3 days of distribution, so now that puts us, an S3 puts us to a 0. But we don't have full distribution, so the buy switch is still on.
And then the next day you get another day of distribution. It's not a cluster because you haven't had 4 days within 8. This one's too far back. but we've had 4 days over the past 25, so we're at a full counter distribution, so it's an S4. We also undercut the low here. So we had 2 sell signals, but because we were only at a +1 the day before, so we were already out, but the S4 is going to turn off the buy switch because we were at 0 and now full distribution. So now the buy switch is off again. Again, no, we haven't undercut our rally day, but the buy switch turned off. There's enough evidence that the market is bad.
Yeah. And so keep in mind, we were out of the market over here, not dealing with any of that pain. We were in the market in a big way over here as the market was up, and then backing out over here, trying it because we don't know at that point. You just have to deal with the information you have at the time. And so there was evidence that it could be the start of a new big bull market, but it wasn't. And so we're backing out. So it's staying in line with exactly how you should trade. And look, we sidestepped all of this. You can lose a ton of money during a month like that. So we're out of the market. We're waiting. We get a pink rally day. We're still waiting. And what does it look like? B1, right? So follow through, and that turns our buy switch back on. We're back at a +1.
B3, very good. We're above the 21 day. So our account expands to +2.
And what does this look like? Yeah, so B4 because we're above the 21 day, 5 days. And we're up on the day.
What's this? We're still way above that 21 day for another 5. So now we're living above the 21 day. So we're 90% invested here. Things look promising.
And right there, we've got a few going on. So we have an additional follow-through day, and we have a B5 and a B6. So another B5 because of the 21 day, and a B6 because of your 50 day, but you didn't need those because we're already fully invested. And the power trend isn't on at this point, so we can't use those. But so we're 100% invested here. We were already 90% invested prior to this. So we're doing pretty good.
Okay, on this day, 2 days later, the power trend does turn on. So we can expand our count up to +7. So we get an additional follow-through day, so our count goes to +6.
We get more strength, so another additional follow-through day, so it gets us to a +7.
And the rally just really takes off. And again, we were fully invested very early in the rally. We were even 90% in here. So this is one of those instances where, yeah, we struggled in here with the choppiness, but we got in early in this rally. We fully participated in this huge run that we had. And now we're starting to get some distribution. So we've got 3 days of distribution in a time frame when 4 was a full count. So what's this? S3, very good. Now, we were at a +7, so we don't even have to act on it yet. We're still 100% invested.
Now we get some additional strength there with a B5 that was needed because we're more than every 5 days, we trigger one of those, and then an accumulation day because it's not a follow-through day or a B2 because it's way too far from our rally day. So we didn't even need all those. It gets us both of those. It's up to a +7 or 100% still.
We get more distribution, so that's going to be an S4. We're a little bit below that 21-day moving average as well, but not enough to trigger the S5. So we have that little buffer in there, you know, the 0.2%. So we're just going to have an S4 there. It's going to bring our count back down to a +6.
Now we're under that threshold, so we've exceeded the 0.2 threshold, so we do both an S5 and an S6 because it's an overdue break of the 21 day, so it's really a double count essentially. So we're at a +4. At this point, you've made a ton of money, you're starting to get some distribution, the market's kind of changing from going straight up to sideways, so you'd look at your account and you'd be looking for, you know, you could sell a little bit more than 90 if you want, you might have some good enough gains, maybe a little bit more than 90, but you want to do some selling at that point because if the thing breaks wide open, you want to stay in line with the count.
And we continue to come down toward the 50-day moving average. We pick up another distribution day. So now we have a full count of distribution. So that's an S4. And we're going to back away a little bit more. We go from a +4 to a +3. So 75%.
So now we have an S7 because we've been underneath that 21 day for more than 5 days, or the high has been stuck underneath there. So you don't see a lot of those impacting you, but right there we're going to do a little bit more selling.
And we kind of get a little support on the 50-day, and then you finally fall below it in a decisive way. So what is a break of the 50? Right, an S9. So what's that going to do to our power trend? It's going to put it under pressure with a floor of 0, right? No more floor if you get an S9, if you break your 50-day. So it's only one count though, so the floor goes away. So if we get another sell signal, we can go down to 0. The buy switch is still on. Our count went from +2 to +1 on that sell signal here. So we still can have 30% exposure. That might be 1 or 2 stocks that you're trying to hold on to.
All right, now at this point, the 21 day finally goes below the 50 on a down day. You can see it crossed below it here, but each day was up. So we didn't want to turn off the power trend. We wanted to give it as much room as possible, but here it finally has a down day and it's underneath it, so that power trend goes away. So at this point, we just revert to our normal rules.
Okay, so is the buy switch turned off? Where were we? We're at a +1, right? And now the power trend ends. But the power trend ending isn't necessarily a sell signal, right? There's no sell signal based on the power trend ending. So the buy switch is actually still on. It doesn't have to be on, but it's still on because we're not at 0 exposure. We have a full count of distribution at this point. So we have full distribution, but we're still at a +1. So the buy switch is still on. It's kind of just hanging on, but it's still on. And we get a buy signal here. We get a break above your 21 day. So we're at a +2. So far, even though the market's been really tough and it's underneath your 50-day, the buy switch is on and we're actually still trading in the market. We actually have the potential to still buy stocks.
Now we're getting even more strength, but we're back above that 50-day, and it's an up day, lows above it. So we've got a B6, puts us at a 75% exposure +3.
By the way, in the older market school, when we used to do this, the buy switch went off around here,
yeah,
didn't
I think
it?
so, yeah.
So
right
that was the changes that we made over the past year are allowing us to deal with this difficult environment where it's not a major bear market. I mean, look at this. It's basically a consolidation after a massive advance. And so in our first iteration, we actually went to cash and had to wait for a follow-through day, but with the new rules, it's kind of letting us have some flexibility after this major run we've had. So over here, some of our these 2 distribution days are falling off. So we went from a full count to 2 days of distribution. So it's going to be a B10. We haven't had many of those, but that's a distribution day fall off. So our count expands to a +4. Basically, it's telling you that, yeah, you have a lot of distribution, but your market's holding in there. So we're going to basically allow you to add to your exposure because this distribution is no longer relevant.
And you get an S9 there. I guess it must have been in the lower half. We're down from a +4, so 90% down to 75%.
Here we're trending above our 21-day moving average. Now for 5 days, it's on an up day, so we're at 90%.
And then we're at a B5 because of the 21 day. So we're at 100%.
And now you start to get more distribution. So you've got 1 stall day and 2 regular distribution days. So that's going to be what? An S3, right? Full distribution -1. So we're going to back away a little bit, just a little bit. We go from 100% to 90%.
Now we get a little bit more distribution, so it's full distribution back then. 3 normal distribution days, 1 stalling. So that's a S4 full distribution, puts us back to 75%.
And again, another day of distribution. Now we've got 5 days, so the distribution's really piling up. And we also broke the 21-day moving average. So we've got 2 sell signals on this day. So we are backing away, seriously backing away. We're only at a +1 now, which would be 30% exposure.
Now the market just keeps getting stronger, so we were looking for a rally day because we had full distribution. So whenever you have an S4, that's when you're going to start looking for a low, even if you're in the market. So here we had the full distribution, so we were looking for a follow through. And so to look for a follow through, you got to look for a rally day. So that's our rally day. So we have a lot going on here with 4 signals that puts us at a +5. So we've got our follow through day, we're above our 21 day. We're above our flatter uptrending 50-day, and then we took out this high. So we have a lot of signals going on. Because we already had exposure, that restraint rule doesn't come into play. It's only down here that would come into play.
So the market goes to new high ground. And again, we are fully invested here, we're participating, but you start to get some distribution now. So you're going to start backing away a little bit, just a little bit, you're trimming, because you're back at a +4, 90%.
Now our power trend goes on because all 4 things are in effect. The 21 days above your 50, the 50's up, it's an up day, and your low has been above that 21 day for 10 days. So again, it's going to expand the count to 7, and we're going to have a floor of +2, and we get a B5. We're going to go to a 100%. So now going forward, we pile up some distribution and we break the 21 day. So we get an S4 because of the full distribution and the break of the 21 day more than the 0.2. So it puts us at 75% invested.
And we continue to have some weakness. You can see the 21 day moving average is rolling over. We're now 5 days below that, so we are trending below the 21 day. So that's an S7. So our count goes from a 3 to a 2. So we're backing away from the market.
Now we get some strength here. We're back above our 21 day, so we get a B3 with 75%.
And we go to new highs. Very good. So here's your last marked high. We close above it. That's your B8, your sign of strength. So our count expands to +4.
All right, so now we get another B4 there, so we put our exposure to full or 100%.
Now a couple of days of distribution fall off. These 2 days fall off. So that's going to be a B10, a distribution day fall off. We're back down to 2 days of distribution within the last 25 days. So our count is expanding. Remember, our power trend is on, so our count can expand to +7.
Now we've got some distribution piling up, so we've got 3 days of distribution. So we have an S3, puts us down to a +5. We still don't have to do anything, but our count is now down to a +5.
We continue to trend above your 21 day, or now we're living above the 21 day. So that's a B5. So again, we're not making any adjustments to our portfolio. We've been 100% now for the last couple weeks. We're still fully in, and we've got a little cushion here in our exposure.
Yeah, and on that point, we've pretty much been exactly in line with the market this whole time, and we're not making as many changes as you might think. We're sometimes fast forwarding 2-3 weeks at a time, sometimes just a couple days. But here we've got a couple signals, one that we don't need the distribution fall off, but we're living above the 21 days, so we're at a +7.
So whenever you're a full distribution, you're looking for a follow-through day to clear that distribution. And that's why all the way over here you get a day that qualifies as a follow-through day. So we're going to reset our distribution count on that day. At this point, no more distribution, and we start counting distribution again. And our count expands to +7.
All right, now it's starting to top a little bit, and we are closing below that follow-through day, the intraday low of it. So that's an S1, puts us to a +6.
We're continuing to live above that 21 day, so we get another B5. So basically, as long as you're above the 21 day, every 5 or so days, if it's an up day, you're going to add a buy signal. It's going to keep forcing you to stay exposed in the market. That's the whole point of that, is If you're above the 21-day, which is a fairly short-term moving average, it means your market's pretty strong. I mean, that's a good sign. And if you know, every 5 or 6 days or so that you're above that, we're going to acknowledge that.
Now you break below that, so it's an S5. It hasn't been the full 30 days, so it's not an overdue break. So it puts us to a +6.
Now here, the low is not above the 21 days, so it's not a B3, but it's a powerful day, higher volume than the previous day. So what do you think it might be? An accumulation day. So we're back at a full count.
And the reason why it was an accumulation day, not a B2, is because we're too far out. We're more than 25 days from that rally day. So here we break the 21 day, so we get an S5, thank you, and now we're at a +6.
A couple things are going on here. You've got 3 days of distribution, so we're going to acknowledge that. And we're also below your 50-day moving average. So that's an S3 and S9. We're also trending below your 21-day. So that was your S7. So we've got 3 sell signals. What happens to your power trend when you have an S9? It puts it under pressure, and it takes away the floor. So you can go to a 0 count at this point. It doesn't turn off the buy switch, but we're going to act on all of these signals. So we go from a 5 to a +2 on this day. And the power trend, we have no more floor on our exposure, and our max is back at a +5 if we get more buy signals.
Now we go forward a little bit. We have an S8 because we've been underneath that 21 day for so long, puts us at a +1.
And we're continuing to trend below the 21-day moving average. We're also below the 50-day too at this point. We're getting in trouble here. And actually your 21-day crosses below your 50-day moving average. So that is going to end the power trend. That means the buy switch is not going to be kept on artificially. If we get enough sell signals, meaning full distribution and no exposure, it's going to turn off the buy switch. So I misspoke. So we're not living below the 21-day here, but the next day.
Yeah, so this is our second S8. So we had one over here, so we were living below it there. Now we're triggering it again. And this is very rare for an S8 to actually be used, and the fact that we had to have 2 of them trigger, it's just very unusual that you'd still be in the market, but we were trying to hold on because of all of the power that we had during this power trend, all the buy signals, but now we're out of the market with 0 exposure.
But at that point, we still didn't have full distribution. We only had 3 days of distribution. So finally, we have 4 days of distribution over the prior 25 days. So we have full distribution. We're at a count of 0 already. So that is going to turn off the buy switch. And we're going to wait for a follow-through day. So that was the whole cycle. I mean, that was about a year's worth of volatility, a tough market, a good market, a choppy market. Any questions on, you guys have a good feel for this? Let's take a couple questions.
Can you explain why there were 2 S8s in a row?
Okay, so first you're going to get a S7, 5 days below your 21-day moving average. And then every time you have an additional 5 days, you're going to trigger a sell signal. So another 5 days, you're going to have your first S8, which will be 10 days below your 21-day. And then you have another 5 days below. Now it can you're only going to trigger it on a down day. We're not going to tell you to sell on an up day below. So it has to be a down day. So in that time frame, if you were to count, so here is your first day below the 21 day, the highs below the 20. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be your first S7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're not going to trigger it because it's an up day, so we're going to keep it. 1, 2, 3. On this day, we're going to pick up the S8 that should have gone off here, but didn't because it was an up day. So that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here's another 5 days below it. So they kind of accumulate. You don't start counting 5 from the day you get your signal. You start counting 5, in a sense, would have gone off. Does that make sense?
The way I like to think of it is I just count from when you first come underneath, when it's first triggered, where you're underneath the 21 day and your high is underneath there, day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I like counting it that way. It makes it easier for me. He likes counting it a different way. So whatever works for you. But on the 10th day, 15th day, 20th day, 25th day, 30th day, and so on, every 5 days, if it's a down day, you're going to trigger the S8. And S8 is very, very rare to actually be used. It's hardly ever. It's just when you have, pretty much when you have these power trends going on, and that it's just kind of slowly rolling over, that's when you start seeing these S8s trigger. It's the complete opposite of a B5. You know how a B5 happens every 5 days that you're above the 21 day. So the 10th, 15th, 20th, and so on.
Is that on up days?
On up days, yeah. So the B3, the B4, the B5, they only happen on up days. Almost every buy signal, I think every buy signal has happened on an up day. Yeah, yeah.
Clarify major low and minor low?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So a major low is going to happen if you're out of the market, you have zero exposure, the buy switch is off, then you get a low, that's going to be a major low. The buy switch is on, it's going to be in one of these cases where it just kind of looks funny. It's like you're just using it to reset distribution, so you don't want to take as much action. So that minor low breaking, that puts the power trend under pressure with a floor of 1, and it's a double count. So it's our only signal that's actually -2 rather than a -1. But the normal S2 wipes you out completely under a major low.